Hello YouTube, I'm Pedro from the Wicked Cat team. Now that we have concluded the videos on materials and shaders, it's now time to move to physics. On the last video I show you guys one of the most important physics components in Unity, the rigid body. Today we are going to move to collisions and how to set colliders. If you enjoyed this video, remember to leave a like, and if you want more Unity 5 tutorials, remember to subscribe to our channel. Now, one important concept in game physics are collisions. For example, you may want your game character to collide with walls, so you won't pass right through them, or you may want to know when a projectile hits the character in order to reduce the health of the player. These are some very basic examples of the use of collisions. So, if we put it in a simplistic way, a collision happens when two objects collide with each other. However, if we try to make our truck collide with another object, something weird will happen. To show you guys what's happening right now, I'm going to create a 3D sphere and add a rigid body to it, and place it right over our truck. So, I'm going to game object, 3D object, I'm going to create a sphere. Let me just change the position of the sphere, isometric, to make sure we are on the top of the truck, for example here. Right now it's under the truck, so let's place it for example here, and let's make our sphere a little bit bigger. Yes, like this, and it seems to be just fine. Okay, so let me just change the camera angle to a position where we can actually see what's going to happen. Okay, so align with view, and now I'm going to select the sphere and I'm going to add a rigid body to it, and I'm going to let the gravity on the sphere, and I'm going to turn the gravity on our truck because I don't want the truck to fall. So turning this off, and I'm going to press play. Okay, let's wait a little bit. Okay, so as you guys can see, the sphere passes right through the truck, and this shouldn't be happening. We want our sphere to collide with our truck, right? So this happens because we are actually not detecting collisions. So in order to detect collisions, Unity needs the game objects to have a specific component called collider. Since our truck does not have any colliders yet, it won't have any collisions, so that's why this is happening. The collider component are specific components that are used to define the shape of an object for the purpose of simulating physical collisions. The colliders are invisible, so they do not need to have the exact same shape of the object mesh. In fact, you should use rough approximations of the shape in order to make the system more efficient, and the player will not notice during the gameplay. So in Unity you can define colliders into two groups, okay? We have the 3D colliders and the 2D colliders. So for this video I'm going to focus, and the following videos we are going to focus on the 3D colliders, and we are actually going to leave the 2D colliders for when we cover the features of the 2D features of the engine. However, keep in mind that they work in a very similar way, so no big surprises there. Now, on a 3D environment, we have a total of 4 colliders that Unity offers us. So we have the box collider, which has the shape of a box, the sphere collider that has the shape of a sphere, the capsule collider that again has the shape of a capsule, the wheel collider, which works a little bit different than the previous colliders, and we are actually going to talk about it on a video where we are actually going to apply wheel colliders to the wheels of our truck, And finally the mesh collider, which takes the shape of the mesh itself. So for our truck we'll mostly use box colliders, since those are the ones that work better for our specific model. So for simple models, for example like a cube or a sphere, one single collider will do the work. However, when we have more complex models like our truck, you actually need to combine several colliders in order to get better results. So if I try to actually create a collider with just one for the truck, with just one box collider, it will be not realistic at all. So what we actually need to do is to create several colliders, for example using boxes, spheres, etc. And the combination of all those colliders are what going to give you the final result for our model. So this means that we are going to divide the colliders into several zones for our model. The easiest way to do this is by using the several mesh groups that we already have in our model. So for example, I'm going to open the mesh object here, and as we can see we have, for example, the mesh for cargo, we have, for example, the mesh for the front, right, as you guys can actually see here. Let me see. So these are the meshes that we are actually going to use for our model. So for example, for the cargo area, what I'm actually going to do is to go to the inspector right here. I'm going to select cargo, and on the inspector I'm going to change to search for a collider, in this case a box collider. And this will have, you can see these green lines over here. This is actually the box collider, which will be invisible for the player. Okay, and now we actually have a box collider added to the cargo area. Now, as you can see, we have 4 parameters in our box collider. So the first one is trigger. So if you enable this, the collider will be used only for triggered events. This means that will be completely ignored by the physics engine. Okay, so for example, let's pretend that try to think of a easy example. For example, shooting. Okay, let's pretend that we are actually have a collider on the bullet, and we want to know when the bullet hits the target, but you actually don't need any physics for the bullet when the collision happens. You just need to know that when the bullet hits the target, the bullet is destroyed and the health of the player is reduced. So you can actually turn this option on, because all you need to know is when the collision happens. It does not have any significance for the physics. Okay, this is just a simple example. So in our case we want this to have impact on the physics, so we are going to leave this off. Next we have material. Here you can set the physics material for the object. So Unity allows you to create physics materials in order to create better simulation of real-world materials. I'm not going to cover this in detail because we are going to have a video to physics materials. So just so you know it, you can actually create a physics material and set it right here. And next we actually have center and size. So here you can change the values on the 3 axes of the collider. You can use it to center the position of the collider relative to the game object, or you can, for example, change the size by tweaking the values of the size in the several axes. So for example, let me just move this to the side. As you guys can see, we could actually change the values of the size. For example, turn this a little bit smaller and make it down here, for example, so it covered this area here. For example, on the side it seems to be working, so it does not seem to need any more adjustments. So just to give you guys a quick example on how to change the size and the center of the collider. So what I'm actually going to do now is to replicate the collider to the other areas of the truck, right? So right now I'm actually going to choose this front area. I'm actually going to add another box collider to it, and as you guys, let me change the view, okay, and as you guys can see, it only covers this area, but I want this collider to cover the entire front area of the truck. So what I'm actually going to do is to change, in this case, the Z position. No, I don't want to change the mesh position, I want to change the position of the collider, right? So increase this a little bit more, okay, move it a little bit front, okay, so it seems to be working on the Z axis. Let's change the size on the Y axis, for example to something like this, okay. I'll say that we can actually make it a little bit smaller on the Z axis now that I'm actually thinking about it. Let's just put it back, something like this. Now changing the view, it seems to be working fine, okay. And now what I'm actually going to do is, for example, for the main mesh, I'm going to add a third box collider, but in this case I want the box to have a smaller size. I want to make it down here because I want to cover the down area right here. Change the Z size, change the Z position, something like this. Okay, it seems to be working just fine. And something like this, for example. Yes, yeah, it actually seems to be working. Okay, so now that we have our collider set in place, what I'm actually going to do, okay, is, as you guys can see, we have our 3 colliders here. What I'm actually going to do now is to press play again and see if we can actually see any difference. So as you guys can see, now the sphere hits the truck. So we have this weird rotation of the truck because we actually have the truck set to no gravity. For just a moment, where do we have the rigid body? Okay, so we don't not using gravity. We can actually turn kinematics, so this will make the truck stay still. If I press play, so yeah, we actually have, you can see that the sphere is now colliding, but since we do not have any forces reacting, you get this weird effect. But yeah, basically this is it. So the collisions are working. Now just a small detail, if you guys take a quick look. So when I created the sphere, Unity automatically adds a sphere collider to it. So every time you create a 3D object, it will have a collider attached to it. So this is why we are actually detecting the collisions, because if I turn this collider off, what happens is that the sphere will still go through the truck. So in order to have the collisions, we need to have colliders in both objects, not just in one, okay? So if I turn this on again, you can actually see the collision right here. So on the following video, I'm going to cover the sphere, the capsule and the mesh colliders. I hope you guys enjoyed the lesson, and until the next video, have a nice day.